I stared at the surveillance footage of Wilbert's room, and my heart sank to the pit of my stomach. In the high-definition footage, he impatiently pinned Zona to the corner of the wall, her torn dress scattered all around. The two of them kissed, completely entwined, unable to part from each other. I stood in front of the large screen, almost in a form of self-inflicted torment, watching every detail with wide eyes. I watched how Wilbert betrayed me. Zona joined the Special Forces team 3 months ago. During a mission, she was drugged. Wilbert, the team leader, carried her into his room. It wasn't until 3 whole days and nights later that Wilbert finally opened the door, a satisfied look on his face. Zona, behind him, had a blush on her face. From that point on, every mission, Wilbert took Zona with him, sharing a room with her every night. I had known everything from the start, yet watching it all unfold still caused sharp pangs in my chest. It wasn't until nightfall that Wilbert finally ended things, his face full of contentment. He walked into the bathroom, and Zona, wanting to follow, was mercilessly turned away at the door. "Stay away from me. I'm going home. I don't want my wife smelling another woman's scent on me." Zona's voice was low and full of grievance. "I've risked my life for you. Am I not more important than that weak wife of yours?" Wilbert lifted her chin, his touch suggestive, but his tone cold. "Who do you think you are? Just a tool to satisfy my needs. Know your place." Tears streamed down Zona's face, but they didn't even faze Wilbert. When Wilbert left the room, he was fully dressed, and Zona was crying, her eyes red. Wilbert's expression remained indifferent. "I promised Heloise I'd spend time with her. I haven't seen her in a week. These next few days, I'll be with her." Without turning back, he walked out. When Wilbert got home, I was sitting on the couch, reading. He smelled strongly of the cologne I had picked for him, Gucci by Guilty. Now, I had become his accomplice in covering up his wrongdoings. But as he came closer, I could still detect a faint trace of Zona's scent lingering on him. No matter how carefully he showered, his body still carried the marks of another woman. His large hand slid around my waist, while the other drifted along my leg. Was he trying to signal something? "How about you have a baby for me?" When his warm breath blew against my cheek, I couldn't pretend anymore. I calmly pushed him away and rushed into the bathroom. I scrubbed every inch of skin he had touched until it was sore, then leaned weakly against the wall. "A baby?" I thought of the 2 red lines on the test from yesterday, and I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. The child Wilbert had wanted for 5 years finally came, after he'd already cheated. I walked out of the bathroom, trying to act nonchalant. "When are you leaving?" 3 days. There's an important mission." He paused, his tone apologetic. "Sorry, I know it's our anniversary, but I can't spend it with you." I touched my still flat stomach, curling my lips into a faint smile. "It's fine. Just try to come back early. I prepared a gift for you." A wide grin spread across his face. "Okay, I'll make sure to rush back." I smiled, my eyes narrowing with quiet irony. "Let's see if you'll really be surprised." The next morning, Wilbert gently woke me up. "The team's having a meal at the headquarters restaurant today. Come with me." I went through the security checks at headquarters, assuming the role of a regular person. As soon as we walked in, I overheard some whispers. "That intelligence analyst isn't coming again? She's so mysterious." "Yeah, we've been working together for 3 or 4 years and still haven't met her. All I know is she's a woman. Honestly, I think the analyst has feelings for the captain. She's always the first to notify us with any results." I lowered my head. What they said was right. I had only joined all of this for Wilbert. The condition for joining the team had been that any critical information should be shared with Wilbert's squad first. So, it was also through this role that I had learned about his affair. My expression was a bit strange. Wilbert, seeing me act off, quickly scolded the team. "What nonsense are you talking about?" The members immediately stood up nervously when they saw Wilbert, and hastily added, "We're just kidding, Heloise. Please don't take it seriously. Yeah, we all know that the captain only loves you. Every time there's a mission, he must bring your photo with him." "Exactly. Whenever he has free time, he's calling you. He's only thinking about you." Looking at their sincere faces, if I didn't know about Wilbert and Zona, I might have been fooled by them. Zona, sitting in the corner, forced a smile as she stood up. Yeah, he only thinks of you. We locked eyes, and I could clearly see the hostility in hers. If Wilbert hadn't been there, I'm sure she wouldn't even have bothered to pretend. After a few rounds of drinks, even I was a little tipsy. Zona stumbled out of the room. Not long after, Wilbert received a message, his breath quickening. He stood up abruptly. Seeing my puzzled expression, he forced himself to calm down. I got hurt during the last mission. The doctor told me not to drink. I'm going to rest in my room. You guys carry on. He hurriedly left the room. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Zona, room 302. Dare to come see? Want to know how well we match in bed? A provocation? I lowered my eyes, standing up nonchalantly. As I stepped out of the restaurant, I overheard another round of gossip. The captain is dating his mistress in front of his wife. What guts? I scoffed. Stealing an affair in plain sight, Wilbert, you really are something. I turned around and went to the surveillance control room, pulling up the footage of the room. Zona had already changed into a seductive outfit, kneeling on the floor. Wilbert was right in front of her, perfectly positioned to take in the view under the thin fabric. He sat on the couch, posture proper, but the redness in the corners of his eyes and his shallow breaths betrayed his urgency. The woman in front of him, in a completely submissive position, carefully took him in, her focus unwavering. Wilbert finally couldn't hold back and picked her up, throwing her onto the bed before pinning her down. He wasn't in the mood to flirt with Zona today. He just wanted to quickly release his desires and go back to spend time with Heloise. But when Wilbert hurried back to the dining room, he couldn't find me. The other team members said that as soon as he left, I had left too. He immediately panicked. When he unsteadily returned to the room, he found me sitting on the couch. When did you come back? I looked at him. Didn't you say you were going to rest? Hearing my question, Wilbert didn't seem nervous at all. In fact, he laughed. The next second, the lights in the room went out. His teammates entered, holding flowers and candles, surrounding Wilbert and me. Wilbert knelt on one knee, pulling out a red velvet box. The massive diamond made everyone gasp in awe. The captain is really generous. He must have spent his whole bonus on this ring. Oh my God, Heloise, you're so lucky. The captain is so romantic. He's truly the perfect man. When the ring slipped onto my finger, my heart skipped a beat. When Wilbert and I got married, he had nothing. A ring made from a pull tab of a soda can was what tricked me into coming back home. Not having a proper wedding ring has always been our regret. 5 years, exactly 5 years, and I finally waited for this wedding ring. Tears welled up in my eyes, and Wilbert quickly stood up, holding me in his arms and softly comforting me. Zona in the crowd also smiled and spoke up. Wilbert even asked me what kind of ring girls like. Heloise, he's really put thought into this for you. She flipped her hair, and the diamond ring on her ring finger shimmered with rainbow-colored light. With everyone's curious gazes on her, she smiled and said, "This? My boyfriend gave it to me." Everyone in the room knew exactly what she meant. Seeing the warm atmosphere from just a moment ago suddenly cool, Wilbert hurriedly spoke. After the mission the day after tomorrow, our entire team can retire. I'll take you far away. For the rest of our lives, I'll be with you, always by your side. Seeing the obvious dissatisfaction on Zona's face, I didn't ask any more questions. I pretended to be touched by Wilbert's deep affection. I leaned against his chest, my expression indifferent. How disgusting. The moment before, he had been lost in another woman's embrace, and now he could promise me forever. It didn't matter anymore. 2 days later, I would be leaving. The next morning, when I woke up, Wilbert had already bought breakfast. He carefully laid out various foods in front of me, a relaxed smile on his face. "I'll stay home with you today, I'm not going anywhere." He pulled me tightly into his arms. Just as I was about to break free, Wilbert's phone rang. He picked up, and his eyes instantly widened. At the same time, I received a message. "I'm at your back door, guess what, will he choose me or choose you?" Wilbert quickly left me with a hurried, "There's an emergency in the team, I have to go, honey," and ran out without even grabbing his coat. I turned and went upstairs, opening the back door's surveillance camera. Wilbert didn't know that before moving into this house, I had someone install cameras throughout the entire place. This was a standard habit of mine as an intelligence analyst. But Wilbert, this special forces captain, had tossed his professional demeanor aside. As soon as he got in the car, his face was dark, his eyes coldly fixed on Zona. Zona didn't explain and just lowered her body. In the sound of ambiguous swallowing, Wilbert's expression shifted from cold to pleasant, and soon to uncontrollable passion. Not long after, Wilbert carried the disheveled Zona from the front passenger seat and placed her in the back seat. He couldn't wait to get inside, not even bothering to close the car door. From the car shaking, it was obvious how intense things were between them. Almost an hour later, the car finally quieted down. Wilbert stepped out of the car, neatly dressed. As he changed shoes when entering, I received a message from Zona. "He's so cruel. It was so big, I couldn't even eat. He said today he doesn't want to use a condom, wants me to have his baby. It's too much, it's burning hot, I can't take it. He doesn't love you anymore. He said I'm the one he wants to spend his life with. Do yourself a favor and get out of the way, got it?" Watching Wilbert head straight to the bathroom when he came home, I turned off my phone. "Oh, Zona. But it's not me leaving, it's the trash leaving me. Still, I'm curious, when I leave, will Wilbert marry you, or will he bury you?" The day of the mission, Wilbert reluctantly said goodbye. He gently kissed my forehead. "After today, I'll be free. Wait for me." His car sped off, and I turned to head to the rooftop. Once on the helicopter, the person beside me leaned in, almost pressing against me in the cramped space. "Are you sure you won't regret it later?" I leaned back and closed my eyes to rest. "Annoying." He laughed softly, then fastened my seatbelt. Immediately, his tone grew serious again. "This mission is crucial. If we succeed, we'll take down the underground forces in the southwest. The boss specifically wants you on the front lines." I nodded, put on my gear, and jumped out of the plane. But as soon as I entered the prepared field command post, I noticed something off. The third operator at the door was moving oddly. I turned to run, but a needle of drug had already been injected into my neck. Before losing consciousness, I heard someone say, "Finally, we've got you, the all-powerful intelligence analyst. Go notify the leader, we've caught her." When the moving coordinates finally stopped, the entire team of special agents had their guns cocked. Wilbert was confused. "The coordinates are this precise? Didn't all the informants we sent in before die?" The commander's voice was calm and firm. "It's the intelligence analyst. She successfully infiltrated and risked her life to send out the signal. Today's mission is to destroy the enemy's stronghold and rescue the intelligence analyst. This is the boss's order, and my own plea." Wilbert let out a laugh. "Looks like this analyst means a lot to you, Commander." "Yes, she's invaluable to me. I believe, Captain Wilbert, you must have someone just as important to you." Wilbert smiled, his voice full of longing. "Yes, my wife. She's my only treasure." Zona sneered. "That analyst? She's always been scared of danger, hiding behind the scenes. Now there's a big bonus for this mission, so she comes out to steal the glory, huh?" Before the commander could get angry, Wilbert spoke up. "Shut up. What do you know? Without her, we would never succeed in any mission. You wouldn't even be here to talk." Zona angrily shut her mouth. The group began rushing towards the target under the cover of night. The attack on the perimeter went smoothly. When Wilbert and his team burst into the warehouse, they saw the leader, barely alive, sitting on the second floor. Beside him was a woman, bound and gagged. The light was too dim for him to make out her face. But strangely, a sense of unfamiliar familiarity surged in his heart. Before he could think too much, he heard Zona groaning beside him. "It hurts. My leg was injured earlier, it really hurts." Amidst the gunfire, Wilbert held Zona in his arms, his expression gentle. His voice was clearly audible, the bones showing. "It's a serious injury. We can't wait." Zona started crying. "Just blow them all up." "Wilbert, if we wait any longer, will I need to get an amputation? I'm scared." "We can't, Captain. We need to capture the leader alive. And the intelligence analyst is in there." Zona's painful moans drowned out everyone else's voices. "Wilbert, save me. Don't you think I'm more important than that analyst?" Wilbert cast one last glance toward the leader. The intelligence analyst had always treated him well, helping him earn major accomplishments more than once. But Zona looked like she was in real pain. The gunfire outside the warehouse continued. Intelligence analyst, the help she provided was nothing compared to the chemistry Zona and he shared in bed. Wilbert made up his mind. He grabbed his subordinate by the collar and whispered. Anyway, the perimeter's been dealt with, there's no need to waste time here. Toss a bomb in and say the bandits triggered it themselves. Hurry up, no more delays. Wilbert bent down and picked up Zona, planning to leave. The moment the bomb was thrown, the enemy leader inexplicably started laughing loudly. Wilbert glanced back. The bomb exploded in midair, illuminating the woman who was tied up. I looked at Wilbert and gave him a sorrowful smile. Wilbert's eyes widened in shock. The shockwave from the explosion knocked Wilbert to the ground. He staggered to his feet and rushed toward the fire without a second thought. It was too late. The bomb had already gone off. Heloise was dead. Thinking of her last smile, Wilbert's heart nearly exploded. He frantically dug through the rubble, his fingers raw and bloody, trembling uncontrollably, but he refused to stop. How could this be? How could Heloise be here? I must be mistaken. It's just someone who looks like her. Wilbert mumbled to himself, desperately trying to comfort himself. In the next second, a diamond ring shattered all his hope. He carefully picked up the ring. The inner band was engraved with WNH, the initials of him and Heloise. He had engraved it himself. Wilbert's hands shook violently as he tried to wipe the blood off the ring, but no matter how hard he tried, it wouldn't come clean. The more he wiped, the more blood appeared. Zona stepped forward to console him, trying to embrace him, but Wilbert pushed her down with a forceful slap. Get away. If it weren't for you, how could I have ordered the bomb to be thrown? It was his own fault. He was the one who had ordered it, killing Heloise. No. It was all Zona's fault. Wilbert staggered to his feet, his eyes bloodshot. Those who knew him could tell this was the sign that he was consumed by murderous rage. Wilbert's hand had already wrapped around the gun. The dark barrel of the gun was pointed at Zona. The next moment, a tranquilizer was injected into his artery. The first shot had no effect. The second shot. The third. Finally, he swayed twice, before collapsing to the ground. When he woke up, it had been over 10 days. Ignoring everything, he yanked the 4 from his arm and pushed all the life support machines aside. Heloise. Heloise. Where are you? It must have been a nightmare. He was pale, grabbing the collar of a public security investigator. Where's my wife? Where is she? Mr. Wilbert, please accept our condolences. Condolences? Get lost. My wife isn't dead, she's alive and well. Get out. All of you, get out. Wilbert went mad, smashing everything in the room. Until a pair of black boots entered the room. It was General Thomas. What's all this madness? Didn't you give the order to throw the bomb yourself? Thomas's tone was cold. Just a few words, but they hit Wilbert like a ton of bricks, instantly crushing him. He collapsed to his knees, drained of strength. It's your fault. You didn't protect her. You said the family would be safe. How could this happen? Thomas calmly removed his gloves and shot Wilbert a cold look. Heloise was the intelligence analyst. She was the top hacker 10 years ago. The boss invited her repeatedly to join, but she refused. However, a few years ago, she finally agreed. She did it for you. But 3 days ago, she volunteered to be the bait for this operation. Do you remember what happened that day? Wilbert froze for a second, then his face turned pale. That day, he had spent the night fooling around with Zona. The team's voice chat had even mentioned it. Captain, take it easy with Zona. Don't break the bed again. I'm just venting, had to let it out with her. The analyst had been listening in on the team's channel at the time. Wilbert was struck like a bolt of lightning. Wait, it wasn't just that day. The intelligence analyst had the highest level of clearance. That meant she could access all the surveillance footage. Wilbert gasped, his breath shallow, as if he were about to suffocate. His hands started shaking uncontrollably. "I request to view the analyst's browsing history." The general nodded and gestured to the soldiers behind him. "Show him." Wilbert's hands trembled as he flipped through the records. 2 days ago, room 302, starting at 1327, browsing for 1.2 hours. 3 days ago, his room, starting at 1722, browsing for 3.5 hours. 1 week ago, the abandoned training ground, starting at 2247, browsing for 2 hours. During those times, he had been with Zona. Which meant, at that moment, Heloise had been watching from the other side of the screen. No wonder she had been so distant recently. No wonder she hadn't been happy when he gave her the ring that day. It turned out, she had known everything. She had seen every instance of his infidelity and betrayal. No wonder she had volunteered to be the bait. She had gone knowing full well she was walking into death. Wilbert collapsed to the ground, slapping himself hard across the face. The usually quiet general gave him the final blow. "By the way, you probably don't know, she was pregnant." That one sentence froze Wilbert in place. Only then did they notice the awkward atmosphere in the room. Finally, the general spoke up, his tone flat. "The intelligence analyst is dead." All the team members stood frozen in place, exchanging awkward glances. Although they were grateful to the analyst for her help, they hadn't fought alongside her in the battlefield. But this news seemed to hit both the general and Wilbert hard. Zona, still in shock, spoke up in defiance. What's so great about her? If Wilbert hadn't been risking his life, her intel would have been useless. So what if she's dead? Is she more important than Wilbert? She had meant to show her loyalty to Wilbert and expected him to smile at her. But instead, she saw Wilbert slowly turn his head, his lips parting slightly. "Dead? Is that what you think?" In the next moment, Wilbert grabbed Zona by the throat with brutal force. "If it weren't for you being injured, I wouldn't have been in such a hurry to leave. If it weren't for you seducing me, Heloise wouldn't have stopped loving me. It's all your fault. You bitch." The team members scrambled to pull Wilbert off Zona. Amidst Zona's cries, they learned a shocking truth. Heloise had been the intelligence analyst all along. The team members were stunned. No wonder her intel was always prioritized for their team. They had never realized. Looking at the chaos in front of him, Thomas frowned in impatience. The next second, the room fell completely silent. He coldly spoke. The radar detected that someone had tipped off the enemy, informing them of the coordinates of the field command center. And the source of the signal was actually from our headquarters. No one noticed Zona's body stiffen instantly. She tried to quietly slip away, but was stopped by Thomas's guard, who grabbed her shoulder. "Miss Zona, can you explain your motives?" The interrogation of Zona was conducted by Wilbert himself. The equipment department had sent over the results of the inspection on Zona's communication devices. And the chat logs with Heloise made Wilbert's eyes redden with fury. It turned out that from the very beginning, Zona had been continuously sharing all the details with Heloise. He couldn't even bear to imagine how heartbroken Heloise must have been to see that information. Heloise must have been so disappointed in him when she saw this. A cold chill surrounded him. "How dare you provoke her?" Hearing the heart-wrenching scream from the interrogation room, all the team members shuddered. As Wilbert unleashed a variety of methods on Zona, his mind kept replaying the events. Within a few hours, Zona confessed everything. "I was sent by them. But Wilbert, I really care about you. I've really fallen in love with you. They promised me that after this mission, they would let me go, and I could spend my life with you. I did it all for you." Wilbert, however, remained unmoved, and instead, he sneered. "What are you? I'm a married man. What makes you think you'd get to spend your life with me? If it weren't for you, how would Heloise have volunteered to be the bait? It's all your fault. You vile woman. By the way, it was because of your leg, wasn't it? That's why you kept whining." The next second, Zona let out a heart-wrenching scream. Her leg was completely ruined. Wilbert gave her a disgusted look, then turned and left. The headquarters was holding a ceremony to award medals, but the leader of Wilbert's Special Forces team was mysteriously missing. He was at our house, numbing himself with alcohol. He rubbed the ring on his finger, heartache beyond measure. The day Heloise died was their wedding anniversary. Their 5th anniversary. Heloise had once said she was going to give him a surprise. Now he realized it must have been the child. But he had personally ordered her death. No one blamed him, but he knew the truth. No matter how much he tore Zona apart, it wouldn't change one fact. He was the one who killed Heloise. He staggered around the house, searching for every trace of Heloise. "Don't be afraid, Heloise. I'll be with you soon." With a smile, he moved Heloise's favorite dolls into the bedroom. Her favorite dress, the book she loved to read, everything of hers. "I'm bringing you your favorite things, I'm coming to you. You'll forgive me, right?" Once everything was in place, he smiled contentedly. He loaded the gun, released the safety, and pulled the trigger. But then, he suddenly opened his eyes wide. No. No. Where were Heloise's ID and passport? I was basking in the sun on a beach in the southern hemisphere, watching the fit, young figures darting through the waves. It was so relaxing. But the next second, a shadow suddenly fell beside me. It was Thomas. He snatched the cold drink from my hand and shoved a glass of juice into it. "You just had surgery, and you're still drinking alcohol?" I ignored him. It had been 6 months since the surgery, and he kept using that excuse, saying I couldn't eat this, couldn't drink that. I only found out I was pregnant right before the mission. But the task was urgent, so there was no time for the surgery. I didn't get it until after I faked my death and escaped. I even discarded the 5 years I spent with Wilbert. Now, I had a new name and identity, money, and time, and I was fully enjoying my single life. But there was always someone ruining the view, stopping handsome men from getting close. Thomas stood by my side with a cold face, and the young men who had been eyeing me from a distance immediately hung their heads in defeat. I took off my sunglasses in displeasure and looked at Thomas. "What are you doing here? The mission went smoothly, so can't the commander-in-chief take a break? Weren't there a few people running away? Shouldn't you be organizing a team to track them?" Thomas waved it off casually and lay down next to me, looking relaxed. "Let the people below take care of it. Why should I worry about everything? What's the point of having them around otherwise?" He turned to face me, focusing intently. "My immediate priority now is to find myself a wife." I pretended not to hear him, focused on pretending to sleep. He smiled and adjusted my straw hat. "You can't keep running away forever, Heloise." The surroundings grew quiet. Only the soft sound of the wind and the roaring of the waves filled the air. As I drifted between sleep and wakefulness, Thomas spoke lightly. "I just got word that Wilbert seems to have discovered your faked death. You wouldn't be this incompetent, would you, Captain Thomas?" He patted my head. "Don't worry." I drifted into a peaceful sleep. It seemed that only when I was by his side could I sleep soundly. Half dreaming, I felt someone pick me up. The arms that held me were strong and steady, just like the time he saved me many years ago. I could smell his familiar scent on the tip of my nose. I nestled into his embrace, finding a comfortable position. As I sank into the soft bed, I heard him whispering in my ear. "Give me an answer, Heloise." In my dream, I recalled everything about the faked death. The explosion's shockwaves had been so intense that I briefly lost consciousness. When I woke up, I had already received treatment. Thomas, expressionless, let out a quiet sigh. "Slight concussion, some scratches on your arm, but it'll heal soon." Everything that happened that day had been a setup. From the moment Zona joined the team, she had been on the surveillance list. What surprised me, though, was how easily Wilbert fell for such a simple trap. He kept saying he loved me, yet another person could easily stir his desire. Such a man, I had no interest in. That day, from the moment I stepped into the enemy-occupied field command center, the mission officially began. All the peripheral attacks were a feint, just to help me get into the core base and send out the precise coordinates. That day, when Wilbert entered the warehouse, what he saw was the critically injured leader. That's because the leader had been injured by me. But this truth was known only to me and a few senior officials. To the outside world, it was declared that Wilbert's team had killed the leader, thus protecting me from retaliation. When we made the plan, Thomas's eyes were full of anger. "Being a scapegoat for you is an honor for him. If you weren't still useful, I would have shot him already." In the original script, I would have made it out unscathed, telling Wilbert the truth and asking for his forgiveness for my deception. Later, I changed the script. I died under the bomb. It was perfect. Then, I changed my name and came here. When I woke up, it was already night. Someone handed me a glass of water. I sighed and said, "Could you stop appearing out of nowhere like that?" "It's me." The lights turned on, and standing at the head of my bed was Wilbert. Wilbert stared at me intently, his eyes filled with the joy of having found something he thought was lost. "I knew you weren't dead. Come on, let me take you home." He reached for my hand, but I coldly pulled away. "The moment you slept with Zona, our marriage ended." Wilbert hastily explained, "I was set up. Zona is an undercover agent, she deliberately seduced me." "So what? Is that your excuse for cheating?" Wilbert froze, struggling to speak. Finally, he said, "I'm sorry for what I did. I'll spend the rest of my life atoning for it, okay? I've been to the hospital where you had your surgery. The doctors said you were crying the whole time. It's okay, we'll have children again. You can't let go either, right? Let's start over, please?" I let out a cold laugh. "Wilbert, what makes you think I'll forgive you? Don't forget, you're the one who cheated and betrayed me." Wilbert's eyes reddened as he pulled me into a tight embrace. "No, I won't let you go. Heloise, I only love you. I've only ever loved you. That bitch Zona, I never cared for her." I struggled with all my might, but it was useless. Just then, a voice full of sorrow called out, "Wilbert, you're so cruel." On the balcony stood Zona, holding a gun. Behind her were the enemies who had escaped. "Long time no see, Heloise. This trick was brilliant, but if it weren't for Zona, you might have actually fooled us." Wilbert quickly stepped in front of me. At the sight, the deputy leader laughed out loud. "Wilbert, we should thank you. If it weren't for you leading us, we never would have found Heloise." Wilbert's body stiffened. I sneered. "So, this is how much you love me?" "No, I didn't mean it. Zona, you bitch, you're the one who leaked our key." Zona, almost mad with rage, screamed. "Yes, it's me. I'd give up everything for you, but you only think of that bitch Heloise. What's so great about her? Since you're heartless, don't blame me for being ruthless." Zona limped toward Wilbert, her eyes full of hatred. But when the deputy leader handed her the gun, she hesitated to pull the trigger. "Hurry up. Don't waste time. Their reinforcements could arrive at any moment. Didn't you say you'd take revenge personally?" Zona held the gun, her eyes filled with inner turmoil and pain. "Hurry up and shoot. I heard Thomas is here too. If he finds out, we won't be able to escape." Zona, trembling, aimed the gun at Wilbert. The gunshot rang out. But it wasn't Wilbert who fell to the ground. It was Zona. A cold voice came from the shadows, "Long time no see. Deputy leader, it's really unfortunate for you, but I've already found you." Zona's hand holding the gun was pierced by a bullet. She collapsed to the ground, groaning in pain. But no one paid her any attention. Thomas, the deputy leader, and I formed a triangle. The situation had turned. The deputy leader stared at the black barrel of the gun, reluctantly saying, "How did you know?" "Since the day I found out you were defecting, Heloise and I have been waiting for this moment." Thomas glanced at Wilbert. "I didn't expect Captain Wilbert's skills to be so unimpressive, taking over half a year just to find us." Wilbert, in disbelief, turned to me. "Are you saying that you've been watching me suffer for the past 6 months?" I looked up at him, my eyes calm and indifferent. Thomas said what I was thinking, of course. Otherwise, you would have been dismissed for disobeying orders a long time ago. How could you, with another man, watch me suffer? I endured so much for you, went through so much pain. You knew all of that, yet you're so cold." "Cold? Wilbert, your mistress is still lying on the ground. What right do you have to question me?" Outside, the spotlight had already pinpointed the room, and a helicopter hovered above, ready to provide fire support. As reinforcements arrived, the deputy leader pulled out a handgun and aimed it at me in a flash. Thomas's eyes widened instantly, ready to rush to my aid. It was too late. The bullet was already fired. At the last moment, it was Wilbert. He took the bullet from me. It struck him right between the eyes. Furious, Thomas riddled the deputy leader with bullets. He rushed to me, his face tense as he checked me over, fearing I was hurt. I shook my head and looked down at Wilbert, my emotions mixed. He had already stopped breathing, but his eyes were still wide open. In the final moments, I never thought he would save me. Zona, who had fallen to the ground earlier, was now unconscious. When she wakes up, she will face severe punishment. Reinforcements had already stormed the room, and I was lifted onto a stretcher. Thomas, looking worried, ordered the medical staff to do a thorough checkup and treatment. No one had ever seen Thomas so anxious. I couldn't help but smile. Thomas held my hand, his palms cold. He had been terrified. I clasped his hand in return, warmth flowing through to him. He looked at me in disbelief. Then, he swept me up in his arms, striding into his room. In the darkness, we shared a long kiss. A month later, the headquarters declared the operation a success and disclosed my identity. When I was honored, Thomas took the stage. Under the spotlight, he knelt down, holding out a ring. Looking at the focused expression on his face, I extended my hand, tears welling up. For the rest of my life, he would walk with me. The end.